Hello there, Stanley Carr here. I love collecting music and sports memorabilia. Want to know where you can find some? I'll tell you. Go to oldglory.com. This website features one of a kind apparel from your favorite sports teams and musical artists. And I can help you get 15% off of all items. Use the code WWH135. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is the show where we talk with professional wrestlers and professional wrestling personalities about their lives in and outside of the ring, as well as doing acts of charity work, community service, volunteering, and spreading positivity. We're always about the positive vibes here on the show, and with me right now I've got a very special guest. He has competed for the WWE, ECW, and numerous promotions across the East Coast. I am pleased to welcome the one and only Bill Pierce. Welcome to Wrestling with Heart.
Thanks. Appreciate you guys. I've wrestled as Bill Pierce during my WWF days, and then Chris Michaels, Sir Richard Michaels, and whatnot. On the Indies. So it's quite a bit of stuff. I also sent you an article that was done a bit. The jobber that kept going was, which a lot of people, will say performance enhancement. Jobber doesn't bother me. I have a T-shirt. I wear that with pride because, um, you know, uh, era when I started was a rough time. You got the boot, not like today. It's a little bit different.
And the thing is like wrestling back then, I feel like was not only huge, but everything was just so stacked. I mean, you had guys like Undertaker and Shawn Michaels, Hulk Hogan was still around, just a wide array, Ultimate Warrior, Jake the Snake Roberts, a
Yep,
lot of
yeah,
different
wrestled
people.
him. Yep. Well, that was the era I came up. I actually started SummerSlam '90 was my very first thing I did for them, carrying Macho Man out when he was the Macho King.
So it's amazing to see like that was such an iconic period of time. People still talk about that. And Macho Man Randy Savage is like up there as like one of the elite legends in the business.
Sure. Well, his match with the Ricky Steamboat is at school. Any young wrestler that wants to see what it's like to captivate a crowd, watch that match
Hmm.
because the two of them had to memorize all those spots. So because of the grandest stage of them all, WrestleMania was still relatively new back then. Now we're talking about the double digits into the 30s now, so it's been around for quite some time.
Yeah, 40 plus years and still going strong. Let's go to your story and go back a little bit. So, where did you grow up? Talk to me about your childhood and upbringing.
Well, I grew up in Long Island, same place, Mick Foley, Long Island. He was North Shore out east. I was uh, in Oakdale. That was their LaSalle Military Academy. It was a big um, run by the Jesuit brothers, and there was over 100 plus years. And then I think St. John's finally took it over from that, but it was there quite some time. So um, I grew up there. Didn't watch wrestling like the way it was. And it was, that was the Bruno San Martino era when I um was a child. So you had that superstar Billy Graham, George Animal Steel, Gorilla Monsoon, the Kangaroos. Geez, we don't think about the Kangaroos, my gosh. And the Sicilians. A lot of people don't realize that Tony Altamori and Captain Lou were a tag team a long, long, long time ago before Captain Lou had the rubber bands and all the craziness with Cyndi Lauper, rock and wrestling and all of that crap. So,
The
so
60s and 70s, I feel like brought a lot of excitement and like really like harkens back to like the old school territory days. People still think that grew up in that time still think back fondly of that era because you really had a lot of chain wrestling, old school, really catch can type of style. So if you're really big into that, those that is a fascinating time period.
well, if you think about it, also then but you had to be a certain age to go see them because they were very bloody and very gory. Um, a lot of those guys, lots. Luke Dez, to think of one, but he was one of the very greatest of all time, and I would be very remiss to not pay any kind of respects to Angelo Savoldi, another one um, oddly enough, the company ICW, which later became ICWW, CCW, when they were world class, was actually started by the Poffos. Randy Savage, his father, and his brother Lanny. So they actually started ICW, and where Miss Elizabeth was doing just commentary or just sitting in the front, and you know, you just don't realize, I guess the humble beginnings and, you know, multiply it by a couple decades and what it turns into.
Yeah, the territories really are just, you see a lot of who's who of people that came from those areas, and then they make the leap to the big promotions, and it's interesting to see how it all kind of plays together, comes together, because you see a lot of these guys like your Hogans, your Macho Mans, your Undertakers,
So we'll
all
get
these
the
people.
Von Erichs. I mean,
Hmm.
talk about things like the territories, like you said, the Von Erichs, Cowboy Bill Watts,
Hmm.
um, uh, Harley Race, Jerry Lawler. So I gained my real itch for wrestling when I was in the Army down south, when I was watching Mid-South, and before it became UWF, the first UWF, and then Herb Abrams later on had the other UWF, which I was a part of, after the Army. But it was the hard hitting. It was uh, and especially when you're down south, there, professional wrestling is religion. You tell one of them corn-fed farm boys that wrestling's fake, and you're liable to get your ass kicked. And but they had that kind of respect for it, and uh, it was nothing like watching the Rock and Roll Express when they were young guys and the girls that were just dripping all over them, and everybody wanted to be those guys. And I remember from Army guys I knew got wigs just to look like the Rock and Roll Express. It was, that was the thing. It was the '80s, so it was like big hair '80s, so it wasn't like too uncommon, compared to how people dress up nowadays. So it was kind of modest in retrospect.
They were the ultimate baby faces. They
Oh,
could get a
absolutely.
reaction like no other. So you knew when that
Absolutely.
music came out, you were in for a treat.
Oh, sure. You look at some of those old things, it was deafening, deafening. The only thing I could think was more deafening than that was the very first match between Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair, that I was there for. I know it's a big digression, but I was thinking about the when they first finally got together. I was under the bleachers, and when Hogan came out and everybody's stomping on the bleachers, and I'm like under that, it was like sounded like an earthquake. It was crazy. But at that moment, you're thinking, wow, those math geniuses that do the architecture work, you had gained so much respect for structural engineers because, wow, it was absolutely the most incredible thing I've ever seen in my life, because that was the most anticipated things in the wrestling magazines for years. Pro Wrestling Illustrated, All Star Wrestling, all the old magazines that made up stories. None of the guys even interviewed. It was just BS, kind of like the Star magazine, the tabloids that you see at the checkout counters in all the grocery stores.
Well, Hulk Hogan was a major name in the WWF, huge. And then you got Ric Flair, another legendary icon, working in WCW. So king here, king there, and like it was just a fantasy match for all these years. And then eventually it happened, and it just drew a lot of people in. And so it's matches like that where you go, I'm proud to be a wrestling fan.
Absolutely. Well, because that was when after Vince McMahon Sr. passed away, and Vince McMahon, for all uh, all he really wanted to do was be a wrestler. But I mean, you can see later on, as him getting involved in the business. But his father told him to stay in the promotions end. That's where the money is, which true, because I mean, look at it now. I mean, but it was, like the field house in Pennsylvania that they used to do some of the shows, or even do high school auditoriums at one time. But they were so small and trying to get themselves built up, and that's kind that's kind of what was what the deal was at that point. It was rebuilding itself. Wrestling, like, it was lowbrow, like I said earlier. You had to be 18 and above. You got checked. It was, the wrestling magazines were extreme. Like I said, it was very gory. So for it to turn around to now, and you think about the whole marketing to the kids, and then the kids had kids, and then you buy tickets, you buy merchandising, and and that was the thing.
It's definitely changed, and but like when you started in the business, um, I'd imagine like 18 years old, knowing that this is what you wanted to do. Walk me through the training process for the first time, learning how to wrestle. Did you play any sports growing up as a kid? Kind of
Well,
help prepare you for that kind of level of physicality?
I was always athletic. I mean, but in my age, the kids, when the lights are on, they kicked you out of the house. You had to come home when the street lights came on. That was it. No cell phones, no nothing. So it was like we were on our own. And we were always, playing baseball or riding our bikes or whatever. And then when I got to school, I did a little bit of wrestling in school, in high school. Didn't really care for the crowd. I got involved in gymnastics and drama club, and drama club had a lot of nice girls and stuff, and it was cool getting the girls from stage crew in the teasers and wrapping up around in the teasers and having fun, just goofing around. And that's where I got my interest. So a little bit of wrestling, a little bit of drama club, a little bit of gymnastics. You wrap it all up, and it's the circus that wrestling is. So, and I also did AAU diving. So I did that also too when I was a kid. So I was swimming a lot. So um, like I said, very, very active. When I was in the army, I was I'm trying to think, in my early 20s. So it wasn't even a thought at 18, actually. When I was 18, that was my 66 Mustang and my big fat tires in the back and chrome rims and blasting music and you know back then uh it was that was the bra burning days where the girls were all running around braless and tube tops and wife beaters, and it was like, holy cow, what a time to be alive. It was like that was a kid on hormones. That was a dream come true, going through the 70s as a kid during the sexual revolution. It was awesome.
Now, starting out in the business, I'd imagine, doing drills and all kinds of stuff. Walk me through the training process because it
Okay.
is a very tough, tough business to be involved in.
Well, where I started was extremely tough because back then the territories, like you mentioned, well, most of the guys would go to try to at least get a little experience, build a name for themselves, and would be Puerto Rico, one of the places, and Japan. So their style is more tight, more stiff, so to speak, or um, so more realistic, and so their mats and whatnot were stiffer. They didn't have like that kind of spring. They were more like a boxing ring kind of mat. And I actually started training in a garage. Had to learn how to bump in a garage. It had like fake ropes put up to look like a ring, but you got inside there. It was built up on 2x4s plywood, some gym matting like you would have for regular mat wrestling, and that was it. Once in a while, Mick Foley would come there and beat the crap out of us and help break us in the old way. But learning how to just do that, and like I said, it wasn't a ring, so we had to run to where there was a wall, pretend we were hitting the rope, and then come back. So it was really odd, but we had to learn more of the skill part of the chain part and learning how to take those falls. And when we actually did get into the ring, it was Cheetah Kid, aka Ted Petty, God rest his soul, was also Rocco Rock, was one of the guys had a wrestling ring, set the ring up, he put the mask on, wrestled with Cheetah Kid, and we were there early. We helped that. We helped get set up and whatnot, and we got in the ring for the very first time. So we were banging around for like about an hour and a half, 2 hours, because like it was a ring. Holy cow, we're not landing on a cement floor anymore. It was actually great. And we was wore ourselves out before the show. We couldn't wrestle, but it was like that kind of level of excitement that you know it's a lot of drills, a lot of rolls, a lot of running, a lot of cardio. A lot of guys get out there and they end up puking. Um, uh, like I helped break in Mikey Whipwreck when he was a teenage kid. So just like kind of passing it along, and him and there was four guys, him with Mikey, Craig, John, Paul. We call these four guys were just small guys, and back then small guys didn't get a push. That was part of me helping out when I was ECW tag champ. I would help those guys same way I got helped by Mick Foley. And so and that's when it was more closely knit. People still were like, well, I know that stuff is predetermined and stuff, but I'm telling you, those two guys look like they were trying to kill each other. I don't know. That looked legit. And that was what we were looking for.
It's the suspense of disbelief, I feel like, that is important to a wrestling show because you want to believe that these characters have a chance of winning the match, and so I feel like that's something that I feel like is just as important to the show, as well as, of course, having a crowd give the reaction.
Absolutely. Well, you want to keep people engaged. Um, I did a persona sometime before what I'm doing now because I'm doing it like a redneck thing now, obviously with the look. Um, and when we came out, we were obnoxious. We had this look. We came out with mirrors with no glass and the cape. One guy had a cape. I had a robe with feather boas and stuff. And it was a whole different look and the believability aspect of it. But we um, also wanted to be the guys where people weren't sitting there like this texting. People were sitting there like this recording us. So we came out, like I said, mirrors with no glass. We looking through them, looking at each other, and people are like, "Well, wait a minute, why?" So it was something different that you're not always seeing people do, and we came out to our own original music, which made it also different. So all of that part of it, and to come out and to not just to have the outfit, but you have to be believable in the persona that you're trying to project, which is that I stress to the young kids now that I try to help mentor now that are up and coming kids, and you have to okay, you come out looking like the part, okay, great, now create your history of your character to make it of some interest when people are doing color commentary. They have something to build you up and to give you substance and to fill up you got that, so you're just filling up the jar and putting all that stuff inside, and now you've got that persona. Like you can see to develop, for instance, like Randy Orton when he first got started, he was a lot of mistakes, a lot of flips, flops, fluffs. But as time went along, you see the development, how so polished he is now in comparison to just, coming out, just coming in and trying to, keep the family name going. And props to him. But, I wrestled his father back when I was an up and coming guy. I learned how to open a beer bottle with a big lighter.
What was it like being around Bob Orton?
Decent guy. When I was doing my early TV, my very first TV match, I had to wrestle a guy called the Pink Assassin. It was a gay gimmick, obviously. And the guy was under a mask, came out all flamboyant with the pink and everything else, and he pinched the ref's ass, and it was pretty funny. And of course, all my friends, I couldn't live that down. My very first TV match, I get beat by a gay guy gimmick with the pink thing. Oh, so like that was it for me. I had to live that, but Blackjack Mulligan was the booker. The Savoldis, ICW, Angelo Savoldi, Mario, Tommy, who we just lost not too long ago. Rest in peace, Angelo and Tommy. And uh, I started out kind of like Mick Foley, ring truck, set the ring up, job a bunch of times. So earn your way in, pretty much. You earn your way, earn the respect, and that's the only way I think. And that's what I try to everybody tell the kids now. You ingrain that is go in, two ears, one mouth, listen. Just, don't go in there, act like you're one of the boys. It took time. I got my ass kicked by the Nasty Boys first time, just because that was what they did. And then next time I was out, everything was great afterwards. So it was how, you respond too, because like I said, it was rough back then. So if you came back and cried about it, then you would get hazed even worse. I knew what I was getting into. I was an army guy. My basic training was way worse than a lot of the wrestling matches I've done. I can assure you.
What pieces of advice that you got starting out um, as a wrestler, kind of what pieces of advice that you got as a wrestler early on, have you been able to instill in some of these guys today that you're working with, and pieces of advice that you've taken away from your time in the wrestling business that you've applied to today on your own outside of wrestling?
Well, everything is structure. Um, because had my mom not died when she did, I would have re-enlisted and been a drill sergeant. I may have never been a wrestler. So I've always believed, and I have a mantra. I've even made coffee mugs that say it. It's train to lead, train to succeed. Um, let me see. Train to lead, train to succeed. No risk, no reward, and no sacrifice, no success. And if you don't do any of that, you just can't come into the business and think that you're going to be an overnight guy. It happens once in a while, but what it does is sometimes it's to the detriment of the guy getting the push too quick when they're too green and inexperienced, and it doesn't go well 9 times out of 10. So it's the climb. Um, just take your time. You see the same people as you go. You meet the same people on the way up as you do on the way down. So you're going to see the same faces here and there, here and there. Eventually, after you see, it's like if you go to your regular job, first couple of weeks, it's kind of awkward. And then after like 3, 4 months, you kind of, you assimilate it in, and,
You get used to it.
things are right. So, and it's like that, like, like with the old vets, like you see guys like the Nasty Boys or Bam Bam Bigelow, um, Hacksaw, Tony Atlas, who I've known my entire time wrestling. Um, Tito Santana, who I was tag champs with on an indie promotion. So, you see the guys, and like Snooker that one time would take us in his hotel room, like a room full of about 30 guys, all packed in this hotel room. Had a whole bunch of ice in the bathtub and a whole bunch of beers, and everybody's smoking weed and drinking, and just Jimmy's just sitting there. He goes, "This is what I miss. All the brothers together. All the brothers together. Hanging out and just all I got, everybody is being there, the camaraderie and everything else. And that's, the fun part. And you get to learn about, what to do and how to, stay in the business. I'm pushing 65, but I can still bump and I can still do some work. And it's because from my very beginning, from my one trainer, Joey Bernard, who I had to mention him because he was my trainer when I first broke in as far as weight training, which you had to have strong legs. So it was bench, deadlift, squat, because you were going in there against guys like Road Warriors and Earthquake and Typhoon and Beverly Brothers and Undertaker, whichever. So you don't get going against big guys. So you had to have some beef to you, and plus you also had to have strong legs because you may have to pick one of these guys up for a maneuver, and they may not give you a boost just to be a ball breaker, and you got to be able to to jack them up. Be like a guy like Ted Orsini that had legs that looked like sequoia tree trunks. But you had to have a degree of strength and athleticism along with that, not just showmanship. And that was the most important part, was you had to have that. And cardio is the most important thing. I kind of slacked off a little bit just over the last couple of weeks because I've been um, working on some stuff. But I would normally get up early, take my supplements, wait about a half an hour so this way everything kicks in. I'll go down, do about 40 minutes of cardio, do some ab work, get done, showered up, then get changed, go to the gym, do a little bit more, whatever I couldn't do at home. I have my home set up, but certain things I can't do. And I'm not looking to do heavy weights no more. I'm just, it's no point for me to do it at my age now. So to look like you could lift 400 pounds without actually lifting, that was, was more important, the cosmetic aspect of it. And for what I do now, coming out as rednecks, we don't really come out there looking like, the body beautiful. So so right now what I'm doing, everything is, is working good for at least, for my age category. But, you have to know your limits. Like the bushwhackers, when they were getting older, the reason why they went from the sheep herders to the bushwhackers being all wacky and goofy, that gave them a couple more years on to their career where they were actually to make some money without killing themselves because it was all shtick. And that's kind of like what we do. We could be serious with the redneck thing, but it's also, you know, uh, it could be we could be heels, we could be faces. Right now we're faces, and it's you work however however they ask you to work. That's really what it is. Just listen. Always got to listen. The most important thing I tell them, listen to what you're told. They want to put a belt on you. That's an extremely tremendous compliment to put your name and your face to their company and they're giving you a title. Don't take it lightly and treat that, even though it's a prop, treat it with a level of respect. Anytime I was ever given a title from any independent company, I took it home, got paint, got bejazzled or whatever, and I would fix it to make it look respectful. I even for one company I wrestled for, we were the first tag team champions. My wife was a seamstress. She made cases for the belts, and I actually made it for the rest of their titles. We did that for them too. So also, everything you show it you treat it with respect. That's like, you just don't discard it in your trunk and take it out there. It's everything. I said it's got to be respect, respect, respect. Um, it's somebody's money that's you're responsible for, and it's not, it's something to be taken, not to be taken lightly. It's not like it's I don't like the backyard aspect of everybody just getting together, getting their friends to get do something that looks like some horrible YouTube nightmare.
You've had an illustrious career wrestling for numerous companies. As you mentioned earlier, you made your debut in the WWE in the early 90s. Talk to me about getting signed, working with so many legends, and any fond memories you care to share about your time in the company.
Well, sure. Like like I said, we were all preliminary guys, jobbers, what have you. But the guys that traveled in our small group were guys that you might know of, Little Guido or Nunzio, Big Vito, uh, Big Guido, that was also Primo Carnero, but you remember Big Guido from ECW. Brian Donahue, who later went on to be the guy on the David Letterman show. Um, so the bunch of us traveled in these big stretch vans, and we were going up to Canada. And I remember we had these two long stretch vans, TVs, VCRs, because the technology wasn't what it was then, and um, and all wrestlers and stuff. You um, take supplements and protein drinks and all of that, which a lot of times gets you quite gassy. So we're going through this area of Canada, and it was a farm area. I guess it was a cow farm or whatnot. So Big Guido, Big Mike, sitting up in the front, and he lets one rip, and it was, oh my God, god awful. It's like, to just peel paint off. So we're cranking the windows down. Geez, God, man, you're killing us. The smell outside from the dairy farm was worse. We had to roll the windows back and bear it. It was horrible. So, so it's stuff like that, or um, in some arena, could have been Erie, Pennsylvania. I could be wrong, but during before as they're setting up, 'cause we used to always get to the arena first. There used to be big buffets before the shows. I don't think they do that anymore, but we did that. You had to get there at a certain time, otherwise you got no food. So we always made sure we were there. And we're in the back, and it's one of those arenas where the benches are anchored to the floor. Guys have got their bags, and there's a narrow walkway, and I remember they were playing music in the arena as they was doing setting up the trusses and all the other crap. And big boss man's walking towards me. I'm walking towards him. Now it's a narrow walkway, and we're like getting to that point where okay, well, someone's gonna have to move to the side so we could pass. So we both stop, and I'm like, okay, well, I stepped to my left. He steps to his right. It's like, okay, that didn't work. Then we both stepped the other way. It's like, okay, looked at each other for a second. We stepped in, grabbed each other, started ballroom dancing to the music that they were playing, and then we became instant friends. So, um, uh, or another backstage thing with the Road Warriors and Percy Pringle. Um, was
Paul
it Paul
Bearer.
Bearer? Yes, Paul Bearer. And I'm, talking to Hawk, of course, Hawk, of course, did have his substance abuse problems, and there wasn't anything he wouldn't try. And I was talking about nitrous oxide whippets, which was like a big thing back around then. You'd fill up the thing, and like same thing, whipped cream can. You do that, you catch the little buzz you do if you were getting your teeth drilled. So I was talking about it, and then all of a sudden, whoa, and Percy comes running up. Oh, you're whippets. Talk about whippets. I go, yeah, yeah. So Hawk's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, tell me more about this. Tell me more about this. And so, well, you get them, you fill the balloon up, and you suck the air, and you catch a buzz. But you don't hold it. Don't hold it because you cut off your oxygen. Your tongue will turn blue. You pass out. You got to let it out easy. He goes, oh, I have to try it. I said, well, Hawk, you're in luck. I happen to have some in my bag. So I went in, got my bag, got my thing, hooked them up, filled the balloon up. I go, okay, Hawk, remember, take it in, let it out nice and easy. Don't hold your breath. So he does that. Hold it a second. Lets it out, lets it out. His eyes get really wide, looks at me, and then in his loudest road warrior voice, he goes to me, do you know what that feels like? Do you know what that feels like, brother? Like, no. Give me another one of them motherfuckers, man. And so like little funny moments like that, or sitting up in a hotel room, passing a joint around with me, Sherry, Marty Jannetty, what's Big Boss Man, and Jim the Anvil Neidhart. Who would thought? So here I am in the army thinking years later, I told my buddies, I'd see you one day, you might see me on TV, and 5 years later, I'm doing this. So it was like never in my wildest dreams. But those are the days. It goes by quick.
Yeah, you never forget memories like that you've had for so many years, being able to share those stories because those are the kinds of stories that you'll remember forever. Being in the business for so long, it's those memories that you'll never forget. And so, getting the chance to wrestle a lot of different people over the course of your career, who would you say have been some of your favorite opponents that you've gotten to step in the ring with over the years?
Well, I mean, my very first match was Sergeant Slaughter, which was when he spoke to McMahon very highly about me after that, which I appreciated. The Undertaker, when he had one tattoo, and then I wrestled him twice, Nasties twice, Earthquake and Typhoon twice, Berserker, Jake the Snake, the Mountie, Beverly Brothers, Money Incorporated. Um, Geez, I'm trying to think. Well, Snooker, that was on Indies, though, but wasn't with them. But um, just gosh, the oh God, I'm trying to think. What was Barry, Repo Man? There we go. I couldn't think of that. Couldn't think of that. That was a God horrible thing after Demolition. I felt bad for Barry. That was his own idea too, and it just didn't take. And the original jacket he wore had license plates on it, so it was kind of like, if you got too close to it, you could get cut. So they had to change his jacket around, but that kind of flopped. Um, and then I guess a lot in the Indies, I had a chance to, uh, to work with, like I said, Tito Santana be my tag partner for a bit. Wrestling Bam Bam Bigelow was probably one of my best. Um, indie matches that I had Sherry Martel was my manager. I wrestled Bam Bam, and he didn't beat me too. I got disqualified, so I could say Bam Bam Bigelow never beat me. So just to be able to say that, and uh, with UWF, Don Morocco, Paul Orndorff, Mick Foley, two different times. Cactus Jack. I think both times they wrestled me was Cactus Jack. But I think just like I said, having those opportunities, I mean, Ric Flair was probably the biggest moment I could think of where I froze and he wanted me to do something, and I was kind of like, huh? And then, before I knew it, he took over, and that was the end of that. But I was very green at that point. I mean, I wasn't expecting anything, but what I learned more about Ric Flair is he was the kind of guy that wanted to um, give you something to show that you had that you were a little bit more of a competitor rather than just some like Bobby the Brain would say a ham and egger. So we always like to extend that respect, and he wouldn't call guys jobbers, even though that's what they were called then. He used to like to call them guys who did favors, which is such a nice way to put it because when Hulk Hogan talks about that wrestling match he had when him and Andre with that one WrestleMania, and he was like he was in a panic that Andre was not going to let him go over, and Andre did. He went ahead and did it for the sake of the show, but there was always that in the back of Hogan's mind. I don't know. He was always that shed of drought, but so you had to have that respect from the other guy too sometimes, and it's rough. Things do get heated there sometimes. Um, it does happen. Thankfully, I've never had an instance where I've come back from something where it turned out to be some kind of a crazy locker room shoot or anything. So I'm glad that my level of professionalism that didn't do things I didn't know how to do and also wouldn't go out of my way to try to make someone look bad. That was just, why would you do that? You just make a bad name for yourself.
You're trying to elevate the next generations of talents that are coming through the locker room and are coming through the company, and you're helping them help their stock rise.
I've got no problem. I've uh the what we had just recently we have a company out here called New York Wrestling Connection. It's actually where a lot of talent that's you see on TV now they come from. That was their home base. Like the current NWA World Heavyweight Champion Mike Mondo. He's one of ours. John Silver, Alex Reynolds, Willow Nightingale. They're ours. They're our kids. So a lot of our kids have gone on and made something of themselves, and that's I call it the house that Mikey built. Mikey Whipwreck. That's got to give all credit to Mikey for that was his place.
Yeah, it feels very good to know that you're trying to endorse and promote these guys and girls to that level. And you've had a successful career working in different companies, and you're trying to do the same for the next generation.
Well, absolutely. It's to me, I don't get anything from them. Even when we do the shows, I don't. If I sell my T-shirts or whatever my gimmicks are, that's my compensation. But I won't take any money from them because that's like I said, that's my way of giving back for them, and especially because like I said, Mikey Whipwreck, who I've known him since he's been a teenage kid. I mean, Mikey, he knew my father when he was alive, and that's how far back I go with them, and uh, I like to keep my roots and stay close to home because I believe that uh, giving them uh, and you could only give so much hope and so much knowledge, but uh, that hunger and that desire to elevate yourself to that next level and get to a point where you get to a particular promotion like TNA. I just saw Tommy Dreamer just a couple weekends ago. We just did an event, and I've known him for over 30 plus years, way back before he was the innovator of violence. That's when Eastern Championship Wrestling turned into Extreme, which is when I made my exit. But like I said, known him for that long too, and the most humble, respectful, and I told him a story in the locker room. I was talking to someone else, and I said, "Good, I'm talking about you. I'm going to say it to your face." And Tommy, I have the highest respect for you because back when we did a battle royal, you remember it was me, you, Chris Candido, God rest his soul, my former tag partner. Um, we were doing some kind of thing, and my ex-wife at the time walked me out to the ring. She was beautiful blonde and came up there and he just went with the thing where he was come up there and grabbed the valet and gave her a kiss. And then later on, he found out that that she was my wife, and he came up and he goes, "Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed." And but I said, Tommy, it's wrestling. Relax. It's cool. It's cool. You're good. But you know what? You know, this the gentleman, the absolute gentleman. So kudos to Tommy's parents for raising such a gentleman. And I'm saying this out of love and respect, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And these are the guys, like I said, you make a good relationship with these guys, and a lot of them, he looked at me, goes, you're going to be 65 because wow, you're telling me you're 10 years older than me and you look like you're the shape that you're in. I said, well, I said, I gotta set the example.
I mean, it's crazy. You're still wrestling, you're still going strong in your career. Uh, what keeps you motivated to keep doing this all these years later?
Well, I have I got grandkids, and I got a wife that's 18 years my junior, so that kind of keeps me uh, wanting to keep myself looking decent. And you know, I kind of like this guy Gary Brecker, the nutritionist, the guy that's a mortality expert. When you start pursuing comfort at my age is when that's when you start the aging process starts more. So my Aunt Lena, God rest her soul, used to always say, if uh, a body in motion stays in motion. The body not in motion is not in motion. And when you were kids, think about it. The minute the sun came up, you would just go. You know what I mean? That was it. Go, go, go until you were told otherwise. And when you stop, um, I guess the best way to say it, the positivity. It's not the days in your life, it's the life in your days. And, if you only had 20 minutes left to live, what would you do? Are you going to order that, hot and ready from Caesars, ready to go, hot, well, it used to be back in the day, Domino's Pizza, 30 minutes or less, you got the pizza for free. Can't get that no more, but
Now, I want to switch gears and talk about some of the stuff you've been able to do outside of wrestling. I know you're very involved with doing a lot of charity work and have been active with helping out in your community. What kinds of things have you been able to do to help out and make a difference over the years?
well, it's like, when you see, I've come across people that, you could tell, I mean, I saw someone not too long ago. I used to work security, and during COVID, there was this one guy I seen was a homeless guy that I seen, and we had made a whole package for him when we seen him again, and then we just never saw him again. Years later, I happened to be driving up, saw the guy. I said, "Holy cow, this guy's still around." It's like right now where we are. I was just talking to my wife, and it would be really nice just to like we have some old coats and the winter's been absolutely frigid over here. We've got at least 17 people homeless have frozen to deaths already.
Wow.
Not to mention the feral animals that are out, like the cats and whatnot that are out there. Because I don't know if because I had quite a few strays up around by me, and I haven't seen them in a long time. So unless they find themselves huddled someplace, and I even even strays, you know, I would if I had certain food, I would throw. I live near the woods where I'm at, so always get my share of wildlife coming around. So I even like to, you know, leave stuff out. The raccoons are going to come through your garbage, so I'll throw something somewhere else to keep them away from it. But they need to live too, and there's times I'll go past roadkill, and sometimes I get choked up. It's maybe just me getting older, but I'm a dog person. So my Pudgy is my everything. He's my soul dog. We almost lost him last year with he had a tumor in his spleen.
Wow.
So it was a whole yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, I went into some serious credit card debt. Thank God I had some friends help put together a GoFundMe, and then did a charity concert for a dog.
Mm.
Crazy. And here he is, and we were in this bar, these people, this band playing, and here he is, guest of honor, everybody jamming music, playing music to raise money to help pay some of the expenses for him. And um, since he was from a shelter, he was a hard adopt, meaning that we were like the third family to actually finally get him, legitimately. But he went out several times and came back, and it was a hard case where they were going to waive the adoption fee because he was just that damaged. He's fine now, but we paid the fee anyway because I wasn't gonna just take him and say, "Oh, well, he's a bad case." I said, "Look, you're still getting the $100 adoption fee regardless." I said, "I even had all intentions of the shelter getting the money, so You waive the fee, you're still getting the money. Doesn't matter. Um, and like I say, get the frosty face dogs. I would say go for the dump dogs, the ones that go in that the owners that get them, they're like, oh my God, I can't. He's at this stage of life, I can't take care of him. No, they just bring him there and dump him. It's like that's well, just like the ones that when they got to put him down, they leave the room at the last minute. It's like, why would you do that? It's like all this time because you can't bear, to watch this happen. It says, yeah, but you're the only person that dog knows, and now, or that cat, now you're leaving the room, and they're a bunch of strangers. It's like, my God, that's not the last moment I want my my companion to have. I would actually. They told me that's the primary of my dog because I know that the brain in the animal stays alive for at least 10 to 15 minutes after they're gone, and I want to make sure that his brain is totally gone to let he know that I've never left his side until that very last moment. And that's I owe that to him. And when they look at you with that look in their eyes, that they're ready to give up. That's where I was like, no, 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 you're not. And I took about a week off of work. I was in there at the animal hospital. They actually had a room you can go in, have a bed. It's for the first time you're allowed on a bed. And I was there with him until um, finally, I'm just laying there sleeping, and he just starts licking my face, and I'm like, wow, from almost ready to give up. And I just saw that look in his eyes. He goes, I'm ready to go, and then lick my face like you didn't give up on me. And they know, what I mean, and he fought to live, and it just how they just know, and he knows. I come home, my knees hurt. He'll start licking my knees, or if something bothers me, they just know it. It's just some strange thing about them, and that's why God gave them to us, and that's why God, a dog spelled backward is God, right? So
What an amazing story. I mean, your dog like was very resilient and being able to stay alive after all that trouble, after all that heartache, still able to survive all that. It's amazing. It's a testament to how well they were able to revive him, and you were able to play a big part in that.
oh, well, but they know that you're there for them because, like I said, you got all this. We got all the things. We're busy, like right now. Busy. He's probably up. He can hear my voice. He's like probably laying on the floor right above me in the hallway, knowing that he can't come down here because his legs are getting too old. So used to come down the steps, but he's a little bit. He's been 13 years old now, so he's a little hard for him to do that. But um, yeah, he's the type now that he's very chill, doesn't make noise. He'll only bark really when it's there's really something going on. But he just pretty much he's in the way. Everywhere you go, he's like right in front of you. Like he lays down to make sure you have to step over him, so you have to see him. So which is fine by me. But there's times that you forget he's there, as big as he is. And you still end up tripping over him, or he'll try to get out of your way and end up knocking you over because he's so big. But it's okay. It's I always said, there's going to be a day when, we're going to be sweeping up hairs or you're going to be finding stuff that's going to be a memory. And I'm just every single day I have them. I just every day I enjoy it. Right now that I'm between jobs, the two that are enjoying me more is my wife because I'm taking her to work every day and bringing her home. And as soon as I come back home, he's over here like, oh boy, scratch my ears. Yeah, you're home. You're not working. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Are there any causes that you're very passionate about?
Um, well, anything to do with veterans and suicide prevention. My grandfather was a World War I, World War II vet. My father, World War II. My Uncle Sammy, Korean conflict. Me during the Reagan years. My son did 12. So he did his time in Afghanistan, Philippines, Korea, this, that. So you know, and as a result of his time in, he developed severe PTSD. So the phrase of 22 a day is very common out here. Is 22 a day are the ones who succumb to the war within, and it's one thing that I'm very adamant about is the government knows how to send them, but they don't know how to mend them, and um, uh, even one a day is one too many, and the not even just the guy, the homeless vet should be two words that you never say again. And I heard that Trump was not sending money to the United Nations. I hope they could vacate the building and make that just a place for all the homeless vets and people who risked everything and really got nothing back. Didn't they didn't get their return on their investment. And in any good business, you want a good return on your investment. And um, you know, without the 1% who volunteer. It's not even like, the draft is in there. So there's that 1%. So 99% of the population enjoy what the 1% do. When we tuck ourselves in at night, a nice, comfy, cozy house, just remember that some of these guys are still coping with not being able to look down and see their toes anymore because, they lost their legs or arms and stuff. So, and it is a big deal. But, we've become so far removed from things with these extra gory video games and CGI and crazy stuff that we've been so desensitized to really what these guys go through to just some 90-minute movie that we watch and go home. So
What is it about giving back to the community that gives you the most joy?
well, uh, I guess the best part of giving back to where I mean it's where you live. Um, I'll anyone who remembers Sesame Street from they had the little, thing, the people in your neighborhood. It's like, they're the same people that, the same guy that delivers your mail, or maybe you see the same UPS guy. When I was a kid, you had milk delivered to your house. I mean, that's, going way back, but there's certain people you're going to see all the time, and it's like we're rather than going to shop in some big corporate place, you go shop in a mom and pop shop or something, and put money into the community that way, rather than like a Home Depot or this big giant corporate thing. Your $10 purchase, yeah, okay, it works, but your $10 in some place where they're struggling to pay their rent means a whole lot more to them, and you're helping maybe put their kids through parochial school, or helping them put their kids through college or something. So your money spent there, you could actually see the results of it, when you're going in, and, they know you on a first name basis. And, that to me is the part of that is I've got these stickers that I have made up that I use as part of my gimmick. And a lot of the merchants and stuff where I shop and stuff, I give them stickers and stuff. And a lot of people go, "Hey, I've seen your sticker. I went shopping in so and so place. I've seen your sticker." They said, "Well, any place I go, it's kind of like a dog. I'm marking my territory."
Hey, this has been wonderful. You got a lot of great stories, and I'd love to have you back on. We'll do a part two in the future. But, Bill, I want to say thank you for coming on to Wrestling with Heart. It means a lot to me and to my listeners and viewers that are watching this on YouTube. Where can people find out more about you on social media? And if there's anything you want to plug, feel free.
Well, I look up Chris Michaels on Facebook. You'll see my old ECW photo on that. I have, as a matter of fact, I can, uh, I can make a cheap plug since you're mentioning that. All right, here we go. Okay, just came today, as a matter of fact.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Um, okay, got some 8x10s here. Me, Tito Santana. Have ECW, Suicide Blondes. Have that's coming. And when I was NWA New York junior heavyweight champion. So I just got these. Get those get signed. We can have them, send them to you in the mail. We'll and we'll have the prices. All that'll be on will be on the Chris Michaels page. Um, it'll they have the signed, and they also have other stuff. We'll be putting up there too. Um,
Thanks again, Bill, and you're more than welcome to come back.
all right. Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate your hospitality, and just that you would even consider having me on here to hear about my. Uh, I mean, I guess you could say interesting nonetheless. But you can see like a lot of the people that are go in the behind the scenes, or that have their journeys that are going on that haven't had a story told, and there's a lot of guys out there that are going through a similar thing.
Yeah.
Um, And like I said, appreciate the opportunity to come out here and maybe put some of your listeners to sleep. So if somebody is or insomniac, you can tune in, and I can guarantee to have your song logs before long.
No, no. Hey, man, we'll get you back on. We'll do it. We'll do another episode soon.
Sounds great. And I'll definitely let Evan know about you and hopefully get nice one because Evan will be extremely, extremely good addition to your repertoire.
All right, take care.
Okay.
Bye bye.
This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.